This third video of visual programming tutorial, we will learn all about .NET.
.NET Framework. In this video, we will discuss what is .NET Framework and what are the components of .NET Framework, or we can say we will discuss the architecture of .NET Framework. After that, we will discuss what is JIT compiler, and at the end we will discuss the complete flow of that how .NET application runs. So let's start with to know that is what is .NET framework. .NET framework is actually a software platform, or we can say that it is a complete environment that helps developers to build and run applications. This framework contains all the things for the developer to create applications and also provide runtime environments or runtime requirements and runtime tools for the developer applications to run smoothly. Now, why do we need .NET Framework? So .NET Framework provides ready-made libraries and classes for buttons, forms, file, databases, everything. It has ready-made built-in classes or libraries for these all tools like button, forms, database, everything. It also have a runtime to execute your program. It has a runtime environment and components to execute your program. Similarly, it provides security and memory management for your applications. .NET Framework not only support desktop applications, but our developer can develop web application, mobile application, and cloud application as well. So that's why .NET Framework is much prominent in the market, that it provides built-in tools for the creations of applications and also a runtime environment for the application, and also you can create desktop application, web application, mobile application, and cloud application as well. So that's why we use and we study .NET framework in visual programming. Now let's see .NET architecture or the major components of .NET framework. The very first top layer, it contains the type of application you have created, like you have created desktop Windows form application or a WPS or ASP.NET. When you create C#.NET application, so that is actually a web applications or window form application. That is for desktop application C#.NET, and ASP.NET is for web application. Windows Form is actually created using C#.NET, that is actually desktop application. ASP.NET is actually web application. And the third one is console application, that is based on command driven. So in .NET, we have three categories of software or application we can create it. Desktop or Windows application using C#, web application using ASP.NET, and console application that is command driven. The second layer of the .NET framework is FCL, Framework Class Library, that has built-in classes and libraries for each type of task. Let's say that has library system.io input output, that is for to handle the files, to create the file, to close the file, to open the file. System.data, they and edu.net, these tools libraries are for the database connection and database related. System.net is for the connectivity of the network, or to connectivity your Visual Studio to database server. System.collection is actually the collections, means data structures like arrays, stack, queues. And this is your Windows form. So window form contain buttons, text boxes, radio buttons, combo boxes, labels. So for each tool, for each button, text box, libraries, there is a specific class. So the FCL is actually a collection of classes or libraries for each task or component needed by these application: window application, web application, and console. So this part provide classes for these three type of application. If they needed any type of task, so that is provided by FCL, built-in classes. And the third layer is actually CLR, common language runtime, that is the heart or the runtime engine of these application or .NET framework. This layer handles the runtime or execution of these all type of application. Like it controls, provide components to thread management, it provide memory management, exceptional handling, it provides security, it provide garbage collection. And one part of CLR is JIT compiler, that is called just-in-time compiler. When you execute your .NET application, so JIT compiler convert this high level language into the machine level language. So just-in-time compiler is a part of CLR which converts your high level language into the machine language. But remember, there is for each language, if you are using C#, VB, or Fortran, for each language there is also a separate compiler. .NET application supports C#, VB, Fortran, these are language it supports. So that's why it is called C#.NET, VB.NET. It means C# and VB supports and works with .NET framework. Inside .NET framework, there is separate compiler for C# and VB and Fortran. But there is also a JIT compiler. So now there is a confusion. Actually, when you write a code in Windows application or ASP.NET or console, so that code is converted by its own compiler. If you like, you write C#.NET. So after C#.NET, the code is converted by its own C# compiler into IL, intermediate language. And that intermediate language is then converted by the just-in-time compiler into the machine language, and then load that code is executable, and your computer operating system takes that executable code and load into memory, and then assign any hardware like CPU for execution. Similarly, RAM, ROM, any hardware provided by the operating system. So these were the layers architecture of the .NET framework. Very top, .NET application. It may be desktop application, either it may be web application or it may be console application. These application uses FCL, .NET free built-in code libraries or classes, and then the .NET provide a runtime environment feature. These are all runtime features, and that code is then C# compiler compiled into intermediate language, and then that is offered to JIT compiler, and just-in-time compiler works only at the runtime. That's why it is called JIT compiler, just in time. Normal compiler like C# compiler, V compiler works before the running. But when it create the intermediate language, just like Java create the bytecode, so it also create a intermediate code that is not machine code. Then that code is provided to just-in-time compiler. Just-in-time compiler is actually a part of CLR that convert into machine language, and then that is operating system load into the RAM and then execute by the CPU. So it is the complete architecture of .NET framework. In the next diagram, that is only based on C# language, that will be very clear to you people how .NET framework works using C# language, because we will follow C# .NET language. Let's say we have created an application using C#, like we have write any high level language. C# is actually high level language. So that high level language code in C#, we have created a desktop application using C#. Then that application or code is compiled by C#, its own compiler. That is called C# compiler inside the .NET framework. So the C# application, desktop application is run or compiled by C# application, and that code is converted into IL, intermediate language, that is not machine language. After that CLR come to an action that execute your IL, and after IL the JIT compiler converts into the machine code. So simply application is compiled by the C# compiler into IL, and after IL the just-in-time compiler at the runtime, and JIT is a part of CLR that convert into the machine code, and now it is become executable. So your operating system takes it, log it, and assign to CPU and provide any hardware resources. So that is all about .NET framework, that how a C# application run by .NET framework. You write the code that is compiled by C# language, converted into intermediate language. That intermediate language takes by JIT at runtime. What is the difference between C# compiler and JIT compiler? C# compiler is actually dependent on C# language, that is specific to C# and works before the execution, while JIT compiler is actually that is generic, that can work with the C#, with the VB, every type of language that is supported by the .NET framework. And the other difference is that JIT compiler works at runtime. That convert into executable file is assigned to the operating system. Operating system load to the memory and execute. So that was all about the .NET framework architecture. How JIT compiler works. This how JIT compiler works. Now specifically we will see the working of JIT compiler, just-in-time compiler. Let's look at the diagram how JIT compilation works in C#.NET. Now we will talk specifically about the C#. When we write the C# source code using Visual Studio, then as we discussed previously that each language in .NET framework has its own compiler. So if we write the code in C# language, C#.NET, so after that the C# compiler converts this high level language code into the intermediate language. You have learned about the Java. Java works like that it converts the code into bytecode, intermediate form. So C# language, high level language, is converted into the intermediate level language, that is not machine level language, by its own compiler. And after that come just-in-time compiler, JIT compiler, that is actually part of CLR, that convert this intermediate level code into the native code. Question arises why there are two types of compiler. So that is the reason that you inside the .NET framework, for each language, C# or VB, the intermediate code is same or common for the both languages. And the other thing is that just-in-time compiler optimize the code according to the available architecture of the PC. So when intermediate code is generated, then this intermediate code is converted by just-in-time compiler into the native machine code according to the CPU architecture. So now this code is independent by the computer architecture or machine architecture. So that is the advantage of the .NET framework. And JIT compiler optimize the code according to the available machine, and then this machine code is assigned to the CPU and provided the RAM, ROM or CPU by the operating system of the computer. So that was how just-in-time compiler works. The high level language C#.NET is converted by the C# compiler into the intermediate level language, and that is converted into the machine native language by the just-in-time compiler. This works at the running time and this works before the running time. So that was all about how JIT compiler works. How .NET application execution flow works. In this diagram, we will see the complete execution flow diagram, that how a C# .NET application execute and step by step. Let's say we have created a C# .NET application using C# language. So this is a source code, and that is taken by the C# compiler and converted into .dll intermediate file, and that is taken by the CLR that provide runtime engine, runtime facilities, runtime environment to the C sharp. And one component of this CLR is JIT compiler that convert your intermediate.dll or .il file into the executable binary language or machine level language, JIT compiler. And that executable machine level language is provided to the CPU of your machine by the operating system. So that is the complete flow. The student should understand the complete flow of C# .NET application. In the future, we will work and we will create desktop application using C# .NET. So they should know how these application runs. Even you write C# code that is run by the C# its own compiler, and the JIT compiler convert into the machine language, and that is loaded and hardware provided or any resources provided by the operating system. Hope you have understood these topics. Thanks for watching. Stay with us for the remaining tutorial.
A .NET developer is a person who builds applications using the .NET framework. I specialize in C# and ASP.NET development. Visual programming tools make it easier to build efficient applications.